Hello and welcome to Rippa Rambles with me, Jack the Ripper. Long overdue on this and I apologise. I know I've been told off for apologising too much in the past, but at the moment everything that could go wrong seemed to be going wrong. It's been fandabby doozy. But that is not what this is about, so let's get on with today's episode. So, yes, this should be up on Saturday. Apologies if it's not. I can't do much about my net upload speed. It sucks. And my nets are just generally sucky, full stop, almost 24/7. More excuses. Again, need to stop with that. So, this is all about the console meta, the average World of Tanks player, and some of the implications behind both of those things. Now, first thing I'm going to say about this is I am doing a far more in detail article for, hopefully, anyway, for Rita Gamer's blog. I got talking to her a little bit during the whole Foshgate incident, and spoke to her again a couple times at Tankfest. Really nice person. Also talking to Deco Noir, who's someone I just knew anyway. The two of them have been trying to coerce me into writing an article, and I'm finally getting around to doing that. And so hopefully, with that meets approval, that will be going up, which, considering how long I can get the feeling this episode may be, and the fact that this is not going to be as in-depth as that's going to be a kind of guideline of what we're going to be looking at here. Although I'm going to concentrate on very different things. In this, I'm going to be concentrating more on the meta aspect, and less on the statistical numbers and what they sort of imply. So I've been doing lots of research into numbers on the platforms, whether, PC, console, Xbox, PS4, and how they sort of represent majorities, minorities, percentages of the populace in general, percentage of active populaces, of social media-based populaces, all this sort of good thing. And one of my main aims is just to sort of try and see where I can go with that. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to the console meta. Now, I refer to the console meta as the couch meta, and there's some real good reasons for that, and I'm going to get into that, but I'm going to leave that until later on. I want you to remember the term, though, as I go through, and see if you can start figuring out why I'm going to go there. But I just want to make the point known, or make the term known, should I say, and then explain the meta a little bit, and then, hopefully, we can go back think back. I'm not going to make you go through all of it again. I don't particularly want to make any of you have to listen to all this twice. Bravo to those who listen to it once at all. But the meta on console is definitely different than PC. And it's interesting how slight changes are part of what causes that. And some of them are very, very controversial. And the first one is, that has to be addressed, it's the elephant in the room. Well, more importantly, it's the E3 and E4 in the room. And that's the 850 Alpha guns. Now, the 850 Alpha guns on console are unbelievably poorly balanced. And not in the sense of they're necessarily overpowered. I have been playing with numbers to look at rebalances of the game, personal project of mine. And quite frankly, you could easily balance the game around those TDs having 850 Alphas. I mean, that is not that ridiculous. I mean, when you consider you've got the Jaeger with its 1050, the Death Star with its 1150, and then obviously the 1750 with its Hesh. The concept of balancing a tank around 850 Alpha is not at all unforeseeable. It's quite easily done. But here's the issue. The issue is that the majority of console is still balanced around the PC meta. And the PC meta has those same TDs at 750 Alpha. And I really should be getting the exact numbers up, but I know any of you can go and look at these really simply if you want to tell me I'm wrong in any of this, but if you go and look at the rate of fire for the console E3 and then the PC E3, and look at the difference, it's so minute when you then end up looking at the DPM, because we have a very similar rate of fire, but we have an extra 100 Alpha, and that really screws with the figures. So, if you take something like the Gorilla 15, the Gorilla 15 has been long awaited in console, and yes, there was an anticlimactic concept to it, almost in the sense of just because the fact that it didn't replace the waffle, but was an addition to the waffle, but it was, the fabled second coming. It was a new sun has arisen, Christ has come again. I don't know why I'm looking to the ceiling. But yeah, why is it you don't see very many of them? Why is it that a lot of people found them particularly underwhelming after such hype? Was it really that there was just too much hype? Were people kind of creating this amazing picture in their mind only to find out that it's not what they thought it was? Or is it that the gun and the tank itself was balanced around a meta that the other TDs do 750, not 850. I'll put it this way. The main thing that the Guerrilla 15 was supposed to have going for it was, you know, a multiple combination of things. So all the tanks on the game are supposed to have similar concepts, similar things, especially if you think about the number of TDs with, you know, 750, the number of heavies with 4 to 440 alpha, 400 to 440 alpha. You know, they have to have something that varies them a little bit. You know, again, the mediums with 390 alpha, there's so many of them. And they all have, you know, okay, this is better at this, but worse at this. This one's good at these 3, but terrible at these 2. Well, this one's great at these 2, far better than any others, but it's pretty crap at those 4. You know, these sort of bizarre combinations. Well, not bizarre. Balanced combinations. Hence, balance. Trying to create an equilibrium if you weigh them all up against each other so that there's nothing with too many positives in any one direction. Although I'm sure people would like to argue that the Russian mediums fall exactly into that category. But the issue then comes in that the Guerrilla 15, it was balanced around the 750 alpha concept. So it was the fastest firing, most accurate, best DPM of the 750s. And it probably still is. But the issue is it's not competing against the 750s anymore. It's competing against the 850s as well. At which point, it doesn't have the same penetration. It doesn't really have the same DPM. It certainly doesn't have the same stopping power. Accuracy, it means essentially nothing on... Well, I was going to say console, but it means essentially nothing on PC. You'll go watch any streamer. You'll watch as either, you know, Orzenal, Fosh, Zircon. Any of these amazing players will aim for a weak spot. And it doesn't matter because they're going to hit the engine at the, you know, 5 meters further to the left because that's where dispersion's at. It doesn't matter whether they've got a .21 accuracy gun or a .41 accuracy gun. RNG is going to play so much decision in where your shot goes that you have so... It's naive to say, yeah, well, I'm using a high accuracy tank and therefore I'm going to hit more of my shots than you using a low accuracy tank. Well, the difference might end up being that my low accuracy tank, I don't bother aiming for weak spots, which means I don't miss as much. You know, it doesn't work that way. And the 850 alpha guns, they just upset the system so much. Everything needs to be changed around them, or they need to be changed down. And it is as simple as that. And that is part of the meta. And this is the thing, it creates this meta of... A lot of people would say, I know people like Just an Ace is a very vocal advocate about this on the forum, of a person of lesser skill than himself, which is many people, can pretty much just press RB and fire from one side of the map, and they have a relative chance of hitting him. And when they're using an 850 alpha gun, which is going to be firing again in 14 or 15 seconds, maybe less actually, they can do up to 1,000 damage. Now, yeah, okay, well, Jaeger can do 1,000 damage. Yeah, it can. But it also has a lot of weak spots, is very easily penetrated by heat, and doesn't fire every 13, 14 seconds. Fires every 20-something seconds, which is drastically different. You're talking more than 50% more on the reload time. And when you think about those sort of numbers, that changes so much. And this is where it sort of links in. And so here I'm going to sort of... I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but this is, I believe, why this is in the game. The Sixth Sense system on console is instant. And I think part of this is a counter to things like the 850 alpha guns. On PC, a lot of people will poke out, think, oh, no, I didn't get shot at. They didn't get spotted. Right, okay. But this time they poke out that extra 2 inches, and they get spotted. But because they did that little poke before, they think it's safe. So they keep going, bang, 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 they're dead. Or maybe just one bang, but they've lost most of their health and they're now useless for the rest of the game. So many different ways that can go down. That doesn't happen on console unless... Well, if it happens on console, you either aren't listening or you're an idiot. Because if you've got the Sixth Sense perk, which you really, really should, a big thing is going to start flashing up on your screen and is going to make a big noise in your ear, and you're going to know you're spotted. People can shoot you right now. And there's another noise if they aim at you. You know, we have detected as well. And this again changes the meta. This means mediums are... They play far different. And I see it a lot where people aren't willing to go around corners first. Far more on console than on PC. I've played both. My experiences are not vast on either. I haven't got more than 10k games on either. I haven't got 15k games combined on either, but combined on both, should I say. But from my limited experience at multiple tiers, I have ground up to tier 10 on PC. You'll see on PC, they'll get people who they're going for a corner, and they know if they slow down and then edge out, there's a high chance they're going to get hit. So they know what they need to do. Just run. Just run to the next piece of cover. They know where they're going ahead. They're just going to run there. Well, on console, you don't need to do that. You can get to the edge of the corner, edge out, edge out. Oh, no, I'm spotted. Right, okay, I'm not going to cross that way. No worries. And then that means an entire part of the map is locked down on a concept. Now, it could be there's a light tank there who's going to do 120 alpha on his own. But you don't know that because there's triangles at the top of your screen. And those triangles scare the crap out of you. Because 850 alpha. So, linking that back a little bit. And so, the two of those really combine to mess with the meta. Rather than having people pushing, rather than having people being able to do better trades. So something like an E4, for example. A lot of people joke that the E4 isn't a TE, sorry. It's a heavy tank. And it plays far better as a heavy tank than most heavy tanks, if you're playing it right. Because you can pop round a corner, and if you know the situation, maybe angle just enough so that you're going to bounce the first couple of shots, go round. You know you're going to take one damaging hit in return, if any, but probably maybe one. You take your time, you aim, boom, 850, maybe 900, maybe even 1,000, and then you pull back. Then you get your reload in. You go again. And that's your trading. Now, if there's more than one person at that corner, and someone can't come and then trade with you again, I mean, if it's a 1v1, then yeah, they can hit you once, then you have to make your DPM work. But even then, your DPM... So, right, so I believe the E4 probably ends up with something like I think it's just under 16 second or something, or around 16 second reload. And you can hit up for 1,000 damage. The Russian mediums with their insane so-called DPM. I think mine is something like 4.5 or something. Is it no? No, it's about 5.4, sorry, second reload on 320 alpha. So that means you're getting 15 seconds. That's 3 shots. So that's 960. So that's... Okay, let's start with one in the clip, shall we? So we've got one in the barrel and three reloads for 2 shots from an E4. So that means in the same time that the overpowered, amazing DPM 140 will do around 1,300 damage. I think it's 1,280 to be precise, but about 1,300 damage. At the lowest end of 2 low rolls, an E4 will do 1,400. Now, its DPM is technically not greater. Don't get me wrong. The DPM is not greater than a 140, and that is not my argument here. It's about the concept of ability to trade. And the 850 really messes with that. You know, if a Jaeger who goes around a corner, snaps off a shot, pens, pulls back, you have a very long time before he's going to do it again. Enough that you can get 3 shots off in most tanks. Whether that's, you know, first shot, track him, he repairs, second shot, track him, you're around him. Not a big deal. With an E4, you miss a shot, there's a good chance he's going to kill you. Doesn't matter what your DPM is, he's probably going to kill you. I mean, excluding things like autoloaders, you know, bat chat sort of stuff. And that is a very, very broken thing, and it changes the meta completely, because it changes how people play, changes how people perceive the battlefield, changes how people perceive the risk. A lot of people will not realise they're doing this, it's subconscious, people don't visualise, or not visualise, realise the mental calculations they're doing when they play a video game. They are no different than aspects in real life. If you're driving down the road and you see another car coming towards you and there's a gap, you're in a rush, you think, I really need to get through this, I know my car will fit through. It's just going to be tight, sod it, I'm going through. So you do it, because you think the risk is worth it. You're in a smaller car, there's no risk. You just go through. You're not in a rush, well, you'll just let the other car come through, then you'll go through. We all do this in everyday life. We perceive a risk, we perceive a reward, and we calculate what is worth what. And the 850 Alpha screws with that concept. And I know that sounds probably relatively drastic, but it does. It screws with it massively. In E100, its main thing is health. If you go against a 5-man platoon of E4s or E3s, against a 5-man platoon of E100s, that E3 platoon should win every time. I mean, for a start, they can just fire APCR, which a lot of players do. At which point, they can just pen anywhere, pretty much. They'll just pen. Why not? They want to shoot you, they're going to penetrate you. 3 shots will probably kill an E100. Realistically, 3. Because it's 850. Before, if it was 750. Admittedly, high rolls, maybe not so. But it's that sort of difference. I mean, technically, you can kill a mouse. Even with a PC mouse, you know, it's 3,000 health. Sorry, 3,200. On console, you could statistically... I think you could just about do that with the 850 Alpha guns. I think maybe you might leave it on like 10 or 15 health. But you can get real damn close. And I've spent a very long time on the 850 Alpha guns, but it's because it's such a monumental thing. It isn't a huge problem. As I say, it could be balanced either way. But it does change the meta drastically, because it's one of these things, you know, it's the butterfly effect. The butterfly flaps its wings, and your E3 gets ammo wrecked. No, I'm joking. But it rolls downhill. An E4 doesn't want to go around a corner, because he knows there's an E3 waiting down the end of an alley. He doesn't want to go... That E4 doesn't get any damage done. Because of the alpha damage of his gun, compared to the E3 who is doing damage, you lose. An IS-3 rushes against an E3. He gets one shot off into him. And he is... that. While the IS-3 does manage to get around him, by tracking him, the time it's taken him to two shots, the E3 is reloaded. The E3 has then been able to shoot someone else on his team, who then comes into the gun line, and the IS-3 has already lost 1,000 health. That guy's done 2,000 damage in the process of dying. That's drastic compared to, you know, I am using high end and then comparing it relatively unfairly. Even if you take the 850, it's still 1,700 damage compared to 1,500 damage. And it's enough difference when you consider total health pools of teams. That happening twice is the difference between winning and losing. How many times have you won a game on 100 health? How many times have you seen a guy escape? And, you know, in one of the capture ones where you have to capture to win. I've had a game once where, I think I've got a picture of it somewhere, where it's like 2,700 or 2,800 base XP and an 87. Because it was tier 9, and I did like 5,800 damage. And we lost because a super Pershing was allowed to run away on 19 health. And you're like, if someone had high rolled, you would have won. Not an issue if you'd add 100 alpha to their gun. Heck, if you had the same percentage, if you just add the same percentage to a low alpha gun, that still would have made the difference. And there is, for me, one of the drastic differences you're going to get with the 850 alpha guns. And I say that implements back into the Sixth Sense thing of how people handle it, and how people receive damage and perceive the risks. Now let's move on from a subject I've clearly covered for a long period of time. I normally try to aim to make Ripper Rambles less than half an hour, and I'm already 20 minutes odd in, just on the one subject. So, what else affects the console meta? Well, I was going to say the server aim reticle, but it's the lack thereof a server aim reticle. And you might say, how does that affect the meta? Well, we have server roaming, and you will find a lot of people will play on different servers. So I will play on EU during one part of the day, then I'll play on NA East or even NA West, although the NA West side is rather rare, at a different part of the day. And what you will see is people who will miss shots that they shouldn't have missed. And it does seem to cause a hesitance, because people are aware of this lack of server aim reticle. Some of them would not be necessarily aware that that's what they're actually lacking, but they are aware of the fact that if they just swing the barrel round and fire at the tank, there's a good chance they're going to shoot the wall over to their right. Whether they're American or British, whether on the European or American servers, it doesn't seem to make a difference. It just seems to be something that goes along with wargaming games. And it's not a criticism, it does happen. You're always going to get lag spikes, like desyncs, packet loss, all these sort of things. They happen. It's part of life. Well, it's part of internet life. But it's avoidable. To have it as a problem is avoidable. PC have it, and all it is, it's a little reticle that is being sent back from server to say where you're actually aiming. And that shows, because that shows where you're actually aiming, you know, oh yeah, look, it's lagging behind the gun a little bit at the moment, so I just need to wait that half a second, maybe quarter of a second. You know, okay, oh no, actually I've got really good connection at the moment. It's pretty much bang on. Not a problem. There you go. Swing gun around, shoot. Well, all it has to do is happen once. Happen once in a night for a party. And I've watched it happen. And it's something it took me a while to pick up on. Maybe even a couple of years to pick up on. It happens to one person in a party over a night. Over a course of a night of gaming. And people, throughout... Literally, I did it once where I think that was what made it really obvious to me. Was I was playing with a group. And someone had it where they shot at someone and they shot literally behind them. Like, I mean, behind the person who was the person shooting. So, you know, I mean, the shell was like 180 degrees away from where they were. And you know, they have a screenshot, you know, green bar. Officially, there's nothing wrong with their connection. But they, for whatever reason, desynced to such an extent that the shell went 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Which is insane. I got off. I came back on in the morning. And although the group was basically entirely different, the sort of Chinese whispers of it, of so-and-so, people A and B were playing with me. And then when I'd gone off, people C and D had joined them. And now A and B had gone, but C and D were still there. And C and D were now playing with F. And C, D and F were taking the same precautions that we had been taking 8-9 hours ago. Because they had continued from the same position. And chances are, I think, the numbers are probably slightly even further out than that. You're probably talking a chain of 4 to 5 people who had changed via the platoon system to, you know, someone comes in, someone comes out, someone goes in. To the point where you are 4 people disconnected from the original party. And they are still affected by the same thing. And this, I think this does actually affect meta. And you see it in a number of times. How often have you won a game because you snapped that shot? And you might think, well, yeah, it's because, you know, the other guy didn't pull the trigger quick enough, right? Well, what if it's because he swung his gun round and he was worried that his shot ain't going to hit you, it's going to go hit the wall, and he's just lost that game, and that's a real big deal. And so he waits. He waits that extra second. He waits to be sure he's going to hit you. You didn't know. You haven't had a shot go wide this game session. You haven't had your shot just completely disappear off your screen. You haven't ghost shelled. You haven't done any of these many things that are involved with the lack of a server aim reticle or the general desync that you get with the game full stop. And so you didn't hesitate. You didn't play that slightly bit differently. And all in all, the meta is about the way that we all play and the way the game itself plays. And I think this lack of a server aim reticle does have an impact there. And I'd be very interested to hear if people agree, because I always raise it as one of my... I list it up at the very, very top of things I want in, because it solves so many problems, and I believe it to be such an easy fix. I'd like to hear what you all think about that, whether you agree. Is that a real easy fix? Is that something you'd all like to see? Am I sort of overvaluing a server aim reticle? What do you think? And let me know in the comments, on Twitter, however you want. Now, an interesting one in terms of meta, because I don't really know whether this should be classed as meta, but all in all, it is, in my opinion. Or it's not. The thing is, actually, it's not that dedicated to console, but it's dedicated to console in a different way. So dedicated, that's a completely incorrect term, but it's a term I'm going to use for now. I've talked in the past about how PCNA has a real problem, especially at lower tiers, where you see a lot of stat padders, or not necessarily stat padders, but people who just enjoy a certain tank, to be fair. And it causes long queue times, it causes a small amount of population at those low tiers. And this means you don't get too many new players coming through. Now that is another implication to do with console that's left for another conversation. But you are seeing something similar on console, but worse. How often do you get into a tier 8 game on console where there's less than 4 premium tanks at tier 8? How about at tier 7? Maybe at tier 5. What about at tiers 4 and 3? I can't think of any, actually. Admittedly, I'm often playing a premium tank. More often than not these days, I play premium tanks. I've not been doing very much grinding. I usually play premium tanks to play with friends, or because there's a new one come out and I think it's crap, but I have to review it for you guys to very awkward inner beliefs on the tanks. Things like this, the Vindicator, I've yet to do a review on. I didn't end up doing one on the Edelweiss or the Nameless. I can still do one post-dated just in case they get sold again. And I do mean to go through and review all my premium tanks again at some point. But there's a lot of them about these days. And you think, okay, well, nothing wrong with that. People are paying money for the game. It makes it free for those who don't want to pay. That's fine. But a lot of these people aren't paying for these things. And Wargaming keep justifying stuff by, we need money, we need money. And yes, I'm aware this is kind of getting off subject from meta, but I'll bring it back. And so they're saying, oh yeah, we need money, so that's why we have to charge for crew voices. That's why we have to charge for this and that. That's why we have to put that extra bit of charge on reskins. Well, the general populace asked you not to keep giving away tier 8 premiums. I mean, the CDC was one of the most looked forward to premium tanks around. I knew of at least 50 to 60, maybe even more people who were going to buy it on release. Top package. And it's, but they gave it away. So all these people didn't buy it. Almost no one bought it that I saw. Like, I didn't see any until it was a physical point where they could have completed it via the op. So they lost a load of money in that. And at the same time, they saturated the market. They put a lot of premium tanks out there. I can't name them all, and I really should have done a bit more research for this one, but I apologise. But there are a lot of them. Name them for me in the comments. I actually, if you don't mind, tell me in the comments which tanks you've got for free. Tell me which tanks you've seen your friends get for free. And just, I don't include giveaways by people like myself or the Beard guys. I've given away a few things. That's competition things. They're different. All in all, me and myself and 20, 30 other YouTube channels and live streams aren't going to oversaturate a market anytime soon. Hey, I mean, I've given away my fair share of M3 lights and T2 lights and Matilda Black Princes and all this sort of stuff, but it's not enough to oversaturate anything. I mean, to oversaturate it to the same extent Wargaming do, I would need some really big lorries to carry the number of codes that they've given away for the equivalent amount of free stuff. And it does create a thing of, there's a lot of premium tanks that are not the way premium tanks were supposed to be. Premium tanks were supposed to be something that were always slightly worse, but definitive, or at least not better, than Tech Tree. But that didn't sell as well. It had its purpose, and they did sell. But no one really bought, 4. If you're going to sell 4 from, say, American Tier 8 mediums, which they do, why? Why would you buy the 4th one? Especially on PC, but more so on console, why even more? Why would you even buy any other American premiums once you've got one on console? Well, on console, they've done things like they've kept pref. They've buffed things. They've made things just that little bit nicer. Panther 88, STA2 being the prime examples. They're tanks that sell to a reasonable extent on PC. Panther 88 definitely not as much, but the STA2 sells relatively well. It's okay selling, but on console, it has no right to be anything other than the most popular premium tank, as it is by far the best, in my opinion, value for money and ease of use. It is a very, very good tank in every aspect. And the number of CDCs, the number of motherlands, the number of fatherland, the number of these tanks that they've given away, it's exhausting. They just completely make up the teams. But this results in a change in meta, because a lot of them have been medium tanks, especially at the higher tiers. I can say the ones I can immediately think of: the Mod 1, the Centennial, the CDC. Technically, I suppose you could count the FV4202, but that would be very, very harsh. That's really splitting hairs. And all of these have come in as medium tanks. And so it does mean you do get a lot of medium tanks in Tier 8 games. And when you then get into Tier 9 games, or Tier 9 or Tier 10 games, where there should be a couple of, say, Tier 8 mediums who are Tech Tree Tier 8 mediums, they're usually not. They're usually premium tanks. And I'm not saying this is a drastic one, and this is why I've sort of left this a little bit. But it does alter things a little. It means that the matchmaking you will see is different. The way you will therefore play is different. People's attitude towards these things is different, and that has a slight effect on the meta. Now, you see, as you'll notice, I've covered a couple of these in far less detail than the Alpha and the Sixth Sense, specifically the Alpha, but that's because I believe the scale of the issue and the effect on the meta is accurately assessed by how much time I'm spending on each one. I'm not spending a specific amount of time. I am actually just I've got bullet points in front of me on a screen. I am talking about them to the point where I think I've covered enough information on them, and then I'm moving on. Just so I know, someone recently questioned about how I do some of these sort of things, and I'm aware that I can probably sound like I'm making up as I go along. I prefer the term ad-libbed. I don't like the whole thing of, I don't particularly like scripting. I think it sounds very obvious when I'm scripted. And so I would much rather have something, I'm going off some guidelines so I don't stray. You all know, if you watch my content, I stray all the damn time. So I'm trying to make sure I stay on target, where I'm talking about what I'm supposed to talk about. Although I'm aware physically telling you that about this is not what I should be doing, which is in itself is a form of irony, but nevertheless. Now let's get on to another very slight change. But it does make a difference, especially in terms of those tricky shots. Now, a thing to quickly remind you, if this is a comparison really. The reason I've called it the console meta is because I'm comparing the difference to PC. If I've not mentioned it otherwise, it means it's basically the same as PC. I mean, in terms of, to get not Sixth Sense, to grind Marks of Excellence is still the same. Tracking damage and general just consistent damage. Spotting mechanics, all these sort of things are generally the same. I mean, to be fair, actually, spotting mechanics is a bad example because PC's got updated and ours hasn't. But the next one I want to move on is to auto-aim. And if you haven't played PC, and you've watched all these PC YouTubers or streamers, and they just auto-aim onto a tank, and it seems like they do nothing. It's easy, first-time effort, no problems. And you don't realise, actually, how much more difficult it is on PC. Because to auto-aim onto a tank on PC, your aim circle has to be right inside the tank. It can't be a little bit too far out, won't do it. If not on it, won't do it at all. On console, it's as if they paint a big square box around the tank. And if it's anywhere near it, it will auto-aim on. Not only that, it will auto-aim on if there is the tiniest bit of a tank showing. And if there isn't, won't auto-aim on. So if you're looking through a bush and you can't tell whether or not you can actually have a shot on someone, click auto-aim. If it locks onto them, it means you've got a shot on them somewhere. Now, it might technically end up being the gun, or a drive wheel, or whatever, but it means you have some form of line of sight on them. And that changes things quite a lot. Because someone sat in a bush, sees a tank get spotted, they go behind a rock, and you have a quick little look around on the mouse, but there's another tank spotted, so you're like, okay, well, I can't shoot this guy, I'll move on. Turned out you could shoot that guy. And on console, how do you check? Click RB. Well, for Xbox, I'm afraid I don't know what the button is. I'm assuming it's right bumper the same way for PS4. And Blitz, I no idea. I don't know. You flip your phone and stand on one leg. I'm making it up at this point, although I do need to install Blitz, but that's another issue. So that really does change things. It changes sort of almost the deadliness of people shooting at range and removes aspects of cover. People sometimes make mistakes when they get behind cover. They expose the tiniest little bit of their tank. But they're about to be despotted anyway. It's not going to make a huge difference. Or people just wouldn't have noticed it. But on console, that doesn't happen. You click RB, you know there's a shot, you fire, you've got them. And I think that makes a difference. I think that does make a key difference. Probably not a huge amount. But I do think it makes a difference to the meta. I think you'll see, if we made it as precise so it doesn't do the auto lock on just because it's behind, and if you just had it so you have to get it within them, I think you'd see less people being able to accurately auto aim. But at the same time, I also understand that it's harder to accurately aim with a controller compared to a PC. A mouse is just superior when it comes to things like on the move aiming. I'm sure there are people who are very much better with a console controller than with a mouse, but that doesn't talk about the ability of the equipment. That talks about the ability of the person to use the equipment. In the same sense of there might be a guy who in a fight is far better with a sword than he is with a gun, but all in all, a gun's going to kill you better and quicker from further away. And then the final one on the grounds of meta is sort of an interesting one because it's a very, I don't know, this is probably a very edgy point. And that is the fact that console has higher XP in silver. So we get, I think it's somewhere between 1.32 and 1.38 XP and silver, more than PC. Now what this results in is that you can go up the tech trees far, far faster. Mix that with, the free premium tanks we've got, the things like the immediate Sixth Sense, which makes stuff dead easy, the detected thing, so even if you don't have Sixth Sense, you've still got some way of knowing if people are aiming at you. And you can quite easily get to tier 10 without having to learn much, if anything. You can just sit on your couch, play however you like. At the end of your session, put your controller down, walk away. And this is where the couch meta starts to come in. There's a sort of gearing, not the ship, in World of Tanks console towards not having to put much time into World of Tanks and still getting the rewards out of it. And I can understand why you'd want to do that. It gets you in players fast. It gets you in players to get to good points in the game that they're going to enjoy quicker. That's great in principle, but I have a feeling that it might be part of why people are talking about a decline in numbers these days. Because people eventually get to a point... There are people who have been playing World of Tanks console for less than 2 years and have basically every single tier 10 tank. You could probably do it in under a year without having to everyday no-life it. The concept on PC of doing that is absurd. For someone who has been playing it for 3 years, to have every single tier 10 would be quite an achievement. Like, really would be quite an achievement. They would have had to play a lot. They would have had to play a huge number of games every day to achieve that sort of thing. Not really the same on console. Yeah, you can do that in a year. Probably 2, if you're going to, no life. If you're going to sort of have a bit of a life as well. Therein sort of lies, I think, a big difference, and why I say about how this affects the meta. If you haven't had to learn things, if you haven't had to learn, well that's not really a proper way. It's not have to learn. It's sort of get to learn. So, if you're playing 1,000 games to get between tier 7 and tier 9, sounds a lot to anyone who plays console. But on PC, that is probably around average. Maybe 7 to tier 10, but you get the idea. The chances are, especially if you do it over a shorter period of time, you're going to see a lot of the same maps. And you're going to be playing the same tanks and seeing the same tanks. And you're going to start to pick up, well, when that guy went there, he did really well. When I went over there, I did really well also. And when that one over there, oh, okay. And you start to pick up things. A lot of the time it will be subconscious. But sometimes you will consciously remember these things. You'll go, oh yeah, I was platooned with so-and-so, and he went over there. That was a really cool position. That worked really, really well. And so you'll try it. And it might not work that first time, so you try something else. But eventually, none of those other ones work, so you try it again. But if you're only going to play 50, 60, 100 games, the odds of you doing the try again are reduced. The odds of you seeing that person playing it better are reduced. Until people, so people basically don't seem to learn as much. And it's not a dig against the player base, because I genuinely think the actual ability in-game is higher on console. But it's an interesting thing that whenever I've spoken to people who play both a lot, I've had about 99% agreement with this premise, is that on console we seem to get a lot of people who go to unbelievably weird or stupid spots. And I say weird or stupid because they are sometimes both, but sometimes only one. And yet, they angle, they side scrape, they aim for weak spots, they shake their turret, they move back and forth to avoid artillery, they reverse, wait until the detected symbol goes, right, okay, now the artillery's fired, change direction. They do all these little things which are very, very clever. They're very, very, what I'd consider high-end. On PC, you'd consider those better level player stuff. But you wouldn't ever see a person with that sort of ability on PC going to those positions. And I think part of that is the fact that the person on PC has had to slog through and learn via exposure to what sort of positions that these people should be going into and what sort of positions are generally worth it. And we just don't have that on console. Not to the same extent. And which weirdly creates a sort of lack, you'd think creates more of a reliance on things like social media in the forms of Twitch, of YouTube. And yet this is the thing. It doesn't. Well, it should, but it doesn't. And this is where I say, you'll have to go, once the blog is up, I'll be tweeting about it. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. I'll try and post it on the Facebook as well. So follow me on one of those two things. And I'm going to go into it in much, much greater detail here, but sorry, on there than I am going to here. Basically, when you actually look at the numbers, if you go and look at Twitch, you go and look at YouTube, the percentage of total population, the percentage of even just the people at that exact moment, go on Twitch, look at how many people, any time during the day, night, any day, go have a look at how many people are watching World of Tanks total. Then work out how many are total watching console. Not just PlayStation, not just Xbox, console. The day I did the numbers, I think it worked out as 0.06%. That's it. Less than 0.1% of that. Okay, well, you think, okay, well, yeah, but okay, maybe that's the same ratio as console players to PC players, right? Not even close. Not even close. Console players actually, registered-wise, have nearly over 16% than a player base of PC. We're catching up, boys. We are catching up. And yet, we make up 0.06% of the viewers. It might be 0.6, I can't remember, but less than 1% anyway. Less than 1%. So it's less than 1%. Actually, might be, yeah, I think it is 0.6. So it's less than 1%. So you're talking more than I think it's more than 15 or 16% difference compared to percentage of the player base compared to the percentage of the viewers on Twitch. And we'll see a similar disparity in YouTube. Now, YouTube isn't the same because I know hopefully there's a few of you watching who are PC players who came over via things like Jingles' advertisement of my channel. There are people here who are Blitz fans who came over by Skate's channel. And there are people watching Jingles who are all of the above. And then there are PC fans who just watch Jingles. Then there are console fans who just watch Jingles. Then there are PC fans who just watch console. I've met a few PC players who they don't like the toxic forums, they don't like the toxic community on PC, and that's not to say all are, but there is an overwhelming thing to such an extent that I've made jokes about it with wargaming when I've met some of the staff and spent time with them, and they're just like, yeah, it's just part of the things, you just get used to it. They're just toxic, what can we do? And it's like, it's that ingrained in PC that there's toxicity. Yes, the toxicity of our city. And yet, it's not in console. And because of that, I've seen a number of people where they are PC players, but they watch console live streams, they watch console channels, because if they share an opinion in the comment section, they don't always get as jumped on as they would in any PC video. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail because I would have to start getting very statty, and I'm already 40-something minutes into this in something that I normally aim for being around half an hour. So apologies if this isn't up on Saturday. It hopefully will be. The podcast definitely will be because I upload that separately and their upload really, really quick. But I hope you enjoy this. I hope you found the information I'm providing in this useful, interesting. If you've got any questions, obviously leave me a comment, message me on Twitter, tweet me on Twitter, message me on Facebook, any of these things. Without going into a Philip DeFranco style mode of this is a conversation, I am always interested in what people think. Like, the way I believe in sort of how we all learn is by knowing and understanding other people's opinion. You're more than welcome to disagree with me. In fact, I encourage it. I would encourage you to disagree with me, because if I can't justify my thoughts, then you shouldn't take a word I've said as being true. You shouldn't trust a word of it. And if you can't justify what you've said to me, then why should I take what you've said seriously? And I want the same attitude to be applied both ways. So I hope I've had the justification in here, and when you see the article, if it doesn't go up on the Rita's blog, if it's too big or just not appropriate according to her, then I will post it somewhere anyway. But I hope that will definitely have, justification and explanation. And I think that's what a lot of Rippa Rambles is going to be. It's me talking about things I believe, and then me justifying and explaining them. And hopefully you will agree with everything I say. Obviously that would be an ideal. But at the same time, I would find that too odd. If no one disagreed with me here and then I think that you're all getting a bit sheepish. And I don't want that. I'm not a shepherd. I'm very much here to hear what you think, as much as what I hope you are here to think there. As much as you are here to hear what I think. That's a bit of a tongue twister. I am definitively going to have to wrap it up now because my voice is also starting to going. So, thank you very much for listening / watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and as always, I'll see you on the battlefield.